Okay, so as I was saying, today we're going to talk about infinite geometric series. As the name would suggest,
it never ends.
An infinite series never ends. Thank you, Jillian. However, in some instances, we will be able to actually find a sum. Even though it's infinite, we will be able to find a sum. And it really depends on our common ratio. So we have two possibilities of occurrence. First of all, if the absolute value of our common ratio is less than 1, and again, we want the absolute value. So if we find the common ratio and we find it's a negative number, we use the absolute value. So we're always going to be looking at a positive value. If that number is less than 1, then we can find the sum. And the formula, the equation we use to find the sum, very simple. First term divided by 1 minus the common ratio. A sub 1 divided by 1 minus r. If we can find the sum, we say that that series converges. On the other hand, if we find our common ratio, and we find that the absolute value is greater than or equal to 1, then we cannot find a sum for our series, and we say that the series diverges. Divergence, yes. Yeah. So, we're going to do an example of both. Okay, so here's my series. 1 plus 1/2 plus 1/4 plus dot dot dot. So step number 1 is to find the common ratio.
0.5.
How do we find the common ratio? It's A2 divided by A1. A2 is 1/2. A1 is 1.
0.5? Or 1/2?
0.5 divided by 1, or 1/2 divided by 1 is 0.5. That's probably the air conditioning.
It sounds like rain.
It does sound like that. I have to look something. So since this value is less than 1, we say that the series,
It diverge. Is a negative.
what? It's all infinite. The series either converges or diverges. If it's less than 1, it
Diverges.
converges.
Oh, just kidding.
Divergent.
If the series converges, we have to find the sum. So we take our first term, which is 1. We divide it by the difference of 1 minus the common ratio. So 1 minus 0.5. 1 minus 0.5 is 0.5. 1 divided by 0.5 is no.
Yes.
No. If 0.5 divided by 1 is 0.5, Jillian, how could 1 divided by 0.5 also be 0.5? What? It's 2.
How? It's
Put in your calculator. Do 1 divided by 0.5.
0.5 goes into it twice.
Thank you. And that's it. That's the answer. The answer is 2.
So does the number series just stop?
No, the series keeps going
Then how do you know the total? The sum?
because it's going to approach, because we use this formula.
But if it never stops, then you can never find a sum.
It will never reach 2. It approaches 2. It's going to get closer and closer and closer and closer to 2. It's like when we did those exponential functions and we graph them, especially the decay ones, it goes down, down, down. It approaches 0, but it never actually touches 0.
So 2 is not right.
No, 2 is,
But
it's not exactly 2. It's going to be approximately 2.
would be the approximate sum that you
Yes.
can't find out because
Because it's an infinite series.
Okay.
That is correct.
Got it.
Can't actually
Okay.
find the sum.
Okay. But it's the closest thing.
That's right.
How you know this converges into
Okay, here's example 2. 2/3 minus 5/6 plus 25/24 minus.
1/25 minus 6.
Thank you. Okay. I'll give you a second. Sorry, the problem there. Good one. Okay, so again, we're going to find the common ratio, negative 5/6 divided by 2/3. Two problems here. Problem number 1, of course, you can see we're dividing a fraction by another fraction. Problem number 2 is these fractions don't readily lend themselves to being converted to decimals. But in fact, you don't need to, and the problem is actually still very simple to solve.
You just multiply by the reciprocal.
Thank you, Jillian. That's exactly what you do. Couldn't have said it better myself. When you want to divide one fraction by another fraction, you can change that division into multiplication by multiplying by the reciprocal of your denominator. So instead of dividing by 2/3, we're going to multiply by 3/2. When we multiply two fractions together, we have two ways to go. We can either multiply and then simplify, or as I like to do, simplify and then multiply. I always find that to be easier. So I see I can simplify this. I can divide both numbers by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now I multiply my fraction. I multiply across. So I get negative 5 over 2 times 2 is 4. So I get negative 5/4. But remember, we're not looking at the ratio. We're looking at the absolute value of the ratio. So in fact, our answer is positive 5/4. That's something that's nice about these problems, is you never have to worry about negative, at least when you're making a determination. As you'll see in the practice problem, when it's convergent and you have to find the sum, don't use absolute value, use the actual common ratio. In this instance, we know that 5/4 is greater than or equal to 1. If you're not sure about that, simply do 5 divided by 4 in your calculator. You'll get 1.25. Since 1.25 is greater than or equal to 1, we write that the series diverges. And we are done, because a divergent series does not have a sum. Because it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger forever and ever and ever.
Okay.
Now, on your quiz, on your test, if it's not a multiple choice question, you must use a complete sentence for your answer. Failure to use a complete sentence. If you just wrote diverges, I'm taking a point off.
Why?
Because I want you to speak and write in English.
Yeah, I'll fail.
So what? It's all communication. It's how you convey things to other people.